All right, we're going to get started. First of all, I'd like to welcome all of you to our transfer live session here this morning, almost at afternoon. Sorry about that. This is for political science majors, so hopefully you're in the right spot. My name is Kurt Hessinger, and I'm one of the academic advisors for the School of Social Sciences here at UC Irvine. So again, welcome, congratulations on being admitted to UCI, and welcome to the School of Social Sciences family. Hopefully this will be an informative session for you, just to give you an idea of what we're going to be doing. So about maybe for the next half hour or so, we're going to have a presentation about everything related to political science, the School of Social Sciences and resources. And then at the end, we're going to have a live Q&A with our academic advisors. And so you'll have the opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A box at that time. But we do ask if you can just wait until we get to that point after the session to put your questions in there, and then we'll be able to answer those verbally for you live here on the session. So let's go ahead and get started. So a little bit about, again, more depth of what we're going to be talking about. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to introduce Patrick Del Rosario from the Social Sciences Academic Resource Center. And he's going to talk about the amazing opportunities that our resource center can provide you as undergraduate students. Then we're going to go through the graduation requirements and how to get from point A to point B to get your degree completed. And then we'll talk a little bit more about School of Social Sciences requirements and how that factors into your major. Then we'll go through the poli-sci department description as far as like what their resources and opportunities are. Then we'll get into more depth about specifically with major requirements in political science, and then some opportunities that you might have to minor in something or even take elective units outside of your major. And then potentially, if you want to change your major, double major, we'll be going through that. Talk a little bit more about our office and who we are as student affairs, a few resources, and then some kind of next steps, which is basically some deadlines that are upcoming. So, and then we'll get to our Q&A session. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick Del Rosario, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about the Social Sciences Academic Resource Center. So Patrick, it is all yours.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Kurt. And good morning, everyone. So as Kurt mentioned, my name is Patrick Del Rosario. I am the program coordinator for the Social Sciences Academic Resource Center. And essentially what our center is, it's a very unique space that's only specific to social sciences, where we help you with a lot of the things that you want to develop throughout your career here at UCI. Because outside of the academics, there's also the things that you want to do after you graduate, and just making sure that you're going to be prepared for anything related to the job market, graduate school, or you're trying to find research on campus. Because you may not know this, but UCI is one of the top research universities here in California. So you want to make sure that you get on that opportunity to do some research within your school, particularly in political science, because there's a lot of research that you can actually conduct here. So what is it exactly that the SARC does for all of you? Well, essentially, if you're applying for graduate school and you're thinking about going to law school or anything like that, we can actually help you through the grad school application process, in addition to also helping you apply for different scholarships. The School of Social Sciences has many different scholarships that you can apply to, and we can definitely introduce you to all of those different things, and you can also apply to them as well. If you're looking for an internship experience throughout your entire college experience, we can also be the ones to kind of introduce you to different internships that are going to be related more closely to social sciences outside of the career center. So we do have a career center on campus, but the resources that we can provide you at our center is going to be a little bit more specific to your personal experience. In addition, we work very closely with a lot of our faculty who are a part of social sciences, so we can help you get connected to them. A lot of the times for people who are going into graduate school, you're going to be needing to get letters of recommendation along down the line. So for us, we'll help you learn how to develop those relationships, so that way you can interact with them a little bit more further. And lastly, there's a lot of different campus leadership opportunities within our center as well. So we oversee several of the student programs, namely our center has a group of peer consultants that you can be a part of. We also oversee a mentorship program for incoming freshmen and transfer students who are first generation. And we also oversee one of the groups, the Dean's Ambassadors Council, that also helps students feel a sense of pride within their School of Social Sciences, but also thinking about ways that we can give back to our students. So in particular, what are the things that we actually do at our center? Well, we do one-on-one consultations. So for anything that I've just described, if you wanted to talk about it a lot more in depthly, you can make a meeting with us and we can kind of walk you through the process of writing your resumes or CVs or looking over your cover letters. In regards to the application process, we can actually go over your entire personal statements, help you ask for letters of recommendation, and just basically prepare your graduate school portfolio so that way it can be ready for when you're actually applying. In addition, with the potential of us going into a hybrid environment, we are going to be having a space at the university where we actually normally have computers and printing services. And if there's a possibility of us being able to give bagels, we typically give out bagels every Friday. So it is a cool resource that you can do a lot of different things if we happen to be open during that time. We are actually located right across from the student affairs office that Kurt and your other academic advisors who you're going to be meeting today are going to be right across the hall from there. So for now, just know that our office hours are going to be available from Monday through Fridays from 9 to 5 p.m. Throughout the entirety of summer, we actually are going to be available to you. And if you wanted to actually look at some of the information that we have available, you can check out our website here. It's just going to be put into the chat. And then if you do have any questions about ways that you can get more involved within the social sciences or the school in general, you can also just email me directly, and then we can talk about things that are going to be outside of your academics. So thank you so much, Kurt, for giving me the time to talk about our center.
You're welcome, Patrick. Thank you again for talking a little bit more about the Resource Center. So yeah, everything that Patrick indicated is right on. This is the best resource center, I think, on campus. And like Patrick said too, there's not really many other schools on campus that have a resource center like this dedicated to undergraduate and graduate students. So it's really nice to take advantage of all the opportunities that they have, and hopefully that'll be something you'll take advantage of during your time here at UCI under the School of Social Science. All right, so we're going to get started a little bit more on some of the graduation requirements. So what I'm talking about here is basically two things. One is our graduation requirements just to get you to the degree point, right? And so basically in social sciences, anything related to math courses that are required within the major, since many of you will have to take some math, and major courses all have to be taken for a letter grade option. So make sure that when you're enrolling classes later on in the summer and throughout your time here at UCI, that anything related to math for the major and major courses do have to be completed for a letter grade. Now, the other aspect of it is that every student, regardless of major, has to complete a minimum of 180 quarter units. And so what that kind of equates to, if you're coming from a semester school, that's going to be converted once UCI admissions evaluates your transcripts. So you'll see you might have anywhere from 90 to 105 quarter units coming into UCI, depending on what you transferred over. But just know going forward that every major requires 180 units for every on campus. So what that means as well is that, let's say you might be completing all of your political science major requirements, and you might find that you're a little bit short of the 180 unit minimum mark. If that's the case, then what you could do is you might have to take extra units, and that could be more major classes if you like, but it can also be like a minor, it could be elective units, things like that. So just know that going forward that everyone has to have at least 180, and you can definitely go over that mark, but you'll have to at least hit that mark in order to receive a degree from UCI. And then as a transfer student, there is a limit on how many units you can transfer into UCI, and that's 105 quarter units, which equates to 70 semester units. So once you reach that 105 quarter unit limit for units transferability, then that means nothing else can be transferred over towards graduation requirements as far as units are concerned. If you find the need that you might have to take a class outside of UCI and you've already reached that limit, it still might be possible if you take a course and satisfy maybe a subject requirement or something like that. It's just that you wouldn't receive any units once you reach the maximum units. Okay. And then lastly, and I know you have aspirations of a lot higher GPA than what we have listed here, but every student at least has to have a 2.0 minimum overall GPA and major GPA. So make sure that when you're taking classes, just know that in your head that as long as you meet that minimum requirement, then you're in pretty good shape. All right, so the next few slides are going to focus on 4 specific areas. First one are UC requirements. When I say UC requirements, I mean that every UC campus has the same requirements, regardless of where you're attending. Then I'm going to talk a little bit more about UCI general education and how that factors into your degree requirements. And then I'll go a little bit in depth about School of Social Sciences requirements for all of our majors, and then more specifically into your major requirements in political science. All right, so the first UC requirement that you see at the top there is called UC entry-level writing. Now, many, if not all, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, all of you probably have the entry-level writing satisfied, because really it requires one English composition course with a C or better to meet that requirement. And so I think you would have had to have that anyway. So that requirement is probably going to be satisfied automatically. The next one, which is American History Institutions, some of you might have all of it satisfied. Some of you might have one part of it satisfied, or you might not have any of it satisfied, depending on where you went or what college you went to and courses that you might have taken there. So basically, every student has to have at least one course in American history and one course in American US government, right? So if you maybe went to your previous college and you took a course in US history and a course in Intro to American Government, then you might have both of these done, right? But there's a chance that you might need one of those, maybe the history or the American institutions. If that's the case, then at UCI, you have the opportunity to take two options. One of them is a year-long sequence in US history, which is history 40A, B, and C here at UCI with a grade of C or better. Or you can take, you can take the US history class, one class, and then one US government class, and then that will complete the American History Institutions requirement as well. Now, we're not going to have the full evaluation of all of this where you're at with that, because UCI admissions is still in the process of evaluating transcripts and things like that. But hopefully sometime around the beginning of fall quarter, we'll fully know like what you have been received credit for as well. And the other aspect of that is, even though you may not have been required to submit a high school transcript, if you have done some aspect of American history or intro to political American government in high school, that might be another way to clear this requirement. So that's something to maybe think about if you need to submit that to UCI admissions as well. All right, so UCI general education requirements. So at UCI, we have 8 specific general education requirements that all students need to complete. The first one is writing, and there's 3 total courses required. 2 of those are lower division writing classes, and one of them is what we call an upper division writing class that every student has to complete as well. The second category is science and technology, which is again 3 courses here at UCI. And those are courses such as physics, chemistry, biological sciences, earth system science, to give you some samples. Then you move on down to category 3, which is social and behavioral sciences. And again, that's 3 courses as well. However, if you, as majors in political science here under the School of Social Sciences, as long as you keep that major going through, this category is going to be automatically satisfied with your major requirement courses. And then we have arts and humanities, which is category 4, and that's also 3 classes. And those are courses such as, it could be African American studies, philosophy, art history, could be dance courses, right? So those are some sample courses in that area that you could take. Then we move down to category 5, which is quantitative literacy and formal reasoning, which under the School of Social Sciences, we do have a specific math requirement that every student has to complete within their major, and that's going to be covered by that requirement. And I'm going to go into more depth of that in a little bit. Category 6 is language other than English, and that's what we call here at UCI through the 1C level of a language. If you've maybe done 3 years of language in high school and you've gotten a C or better, average or better in that last year, that might cover it. Maybe you've taken some language courses at your previous college. That's another way to satisfy it. But if you need to do that here at UCI, you will need to complete through the 1C level of a language. And then category 7 is multicultural studies. And that is 1 course for that requirement. And that represents courses like race and ethnic studies courses. That could be Asian American studies, African American studies. We have some other like sociology courses that might be able to satisfy the requirement, but that's just a 1 course commitment right there. And then the final category is 8, which is international global issues. And that course represents something that's more global in nature. So like, let's say history of China or Canadian politics or something like that. And that would be a 1 course commitment there as well. And then at the bottom there, you see, for transfer students, many of you, if they're coming from California community colleges, may have satisfied many of these requirements through UCI GETC. And I'm going to talk about that in more depth on the next slide. But there's also a possibility of UC reciprocity if you're transferring directly from another UC campus. So, and we're going to talk about a little bit more of that in the next slide. All right, so a GETC is basically a community college certification. So it's not a UC requirement to be admitted. It's not a UC program. So it comes directly from your host community college that you're attending. So if you know you've done a GETC certification, it really needs to come directly on your transcript from that community college, or maybe it was attached to the transcript like with a separate verification certificate. Those are 2 ways that usually that it's listed for you on your transcript. Now, it's not automatic that it is included on your transcript if you only request the transcript. In many cases, you're going to have to like do a checkbox or click on something that says, please include my GETC certification with that. So that way your community college knows that, okay, you're wanting this to be sent to UC Irvine. So make sure that you do request that. It really does need to come directly from the community college because we have no way of kind of certifying you unless they provide that certification. And it needs to be sent directly to UCI admissions. The other aspect, which is UC reciprocity, is very similar, except typically it's a letter that you get from your host UC campus confirming that you've completed all of their general education requirements there. And that also would be sent officially to UCI admissions so we can confirm completion of UC reciprocity if you've done that. And then if you have a full or partial IGETC, make sure it's sent electronically directly to UCI admissions because they're the ones that are going to kind of put it in the database so we can actually confirm that you've completed it. And I would say do it as soon as you can. We'd like to have it by the beginning of fall quarter. That way you know what you have credit for and we know what you already had credit for as well. So hopefully that gives you enough time frame because we don't start our quarter until the end of September. So you have some time to get that in. Now, the other bottom part there is that all transfer students, regardless of UC IGETC or reciprocity, have to complete an upper division writing requirement, and that's for every student on campus. So that's something to consider. Like there's in political science, we offer a number of courses that have a W after it. So if we see a course that says like 121 AW, the W at the end of that designates that as upper division writing course. So those are things that we can advise you on as you go through the academic year about what the upper division writing courses are. All right, so the next slide here, we're going to be talking more about School of Social Science requirements. And this is the same for all majors. So every major in the School of Social Sciences has to complete the School of Social Sciences requirements. So for us, we have two specific areas. One is a math requirement and one is a computer technology requirement course. So for the math requirement, we require a full year of math being completed that's transferable. So what we find is that many students that are coming in for our majors typically have at least one semester of stats. And if that's the case, then what that would mean is you get credit for Stat 7, which is that second bullet point there underneath the math requirement. So that means you still have some math left to do, and you have two options in order to get that done. Now, one way is you complete math 2A and 2B, which is calculus, if you want to go that route. All right, and then you combine that with that semester of stats, and then that will finish up the math requirement. The other option is the more I guess common option a lot of our political science majors would take would be the social science 10A, B, and C sequence. And that's a sequence in probability and statistics. So even though you have a semester of stats, you still need to take more math with that because it's a little more extensive in those areas. So that is typically the more common route. You can take calculus if you want. It's a little bit more abstract in nature, things like that. And you might take a placement exam if you haven't had pre-calculus before, trigonometry. Those would be kind of leading courses to the calculus. So, but many of our students take the social science 10A, B, and C, and I think that is something that you might want to look at it right off the bat in the fall quarter, is taking the 10A course in the fall, 10B in the winter, and 10C in the spring. That way you can get that sequence done during your first year at UCI. Right, and then again, all math courses must be taken 4-letter grade. The second requirement is computer technology, and that's a one-course commitment. And the most common option here is social science 3A, because it is offered under the School of Social Sciences, and we do offer it every quarter, including during the summer here at UCI. But there is another option. You can take ICS 31, and that is a computer science programming course and a little bit more challenging in nature. And it's also challenging to enroll into sometimes because it is taken by a lot of our computer science majors. So if you want to go that route, if you can't get it during the year, then you can take it during the summer. But social science 3A is offered every quarter and is the more common of the two. And then for the computer technology requirement, you can take that for a pass no pass option if you would like, or a letter grade. All right, so a little bit more in depth about the Department of Political Science. So many of you have taken at least one political science course before, so you kind of have a little bit of an idea of what you're getting into with political science. But just to provide you what our faculty members research here at UCI is that they're looking more advanced democratizing societies, international cooperation, ethnic minority groups, altruism and morality. So those are some of the areas that our faculty members are researching right now, and the courses that you might find are going to represent those areas. On the left-hand side, you'll see some sample courses. You'll see courses like human rights. You'll have introduction to law, the American presidency, politics of protest, U.S. elections. So that's a small sample of some of the courses that you might see and you might be wanting to take to complete your major requirements in political science. And then on the right-hand side, you're going to see some opportunities that the department provides, such as an honors program. And the honors program is basically you're completing a major research project. So Patrick alluded to this earlier, and with the SARC is that research is a very strong component of UC Irvine. And so the honors program is basically a chance to do an honors thesis in your major of political science with a faculty mentor, but you're coming up with your own research topic, you're doing the data collection and the write-up, and that's typically a year-long program, and that would be something you could look into as well. And then we have like a law forum, we have a mock trial team here at UCI, and then we also have an honor society. All right, so this is more in depth about the specific major requirements for political science. So on the right-hand side, you're going to see the requirements that are kind of what we call a degree check. So you're going to get these later on in the summer with more of an evaluation of your courses, but this is just more to show you what's required within the major in total. So every student has to have 5 lower division courses in political science, and you can see here, these are the choices that you have, and this comes from this area right here. So some of you might have part of this done from your previous college, you might have all 5 done, you might have 2 or 3, but it really depends on where you're transferring from, and when we evaluate your transfer, you'll know ahead of time how many courses you have credit for. Then we have a module that's required, which is in this area down here in area 11. And a module basically means every student has to have at least 3 classes in one of our modules. And that could be American politics, political theory, international relations, or comparative politics. And then there's also public law as well. So every student has to have at least 3 courses that fall into those numbering sequences right there. And that's just the way of making sure that you have at least an area covered within political science. Then you have down here in area 12, 4 additional upper division political science courses, and those can be from any areas that you haven't taken. So if you want to do, say, for example, American politics for your module, but then maybe in the 4 additional, you want to take some public law, some international relations, some comparative politics, you can take those in the 4 additional areas down here. And then at the top up here, there are 3 additional social science courses required. One of them can be lower division, which is numbered 1 through 99. And then 2 of them can be upper division, 100 or above. And these courses can be more political science if you'd like, but they can also be courses like sociology, they could be anthropology, international studies. So you can mix and match maybe with some other courses that we offer here in the School of Social Sciences. All right, so that kind of is a little brief overview of what the major looks like in the requirements. All right, so minor opportunities. So minors at UCI are available for most majors. Typically, there are usually about 7 or more classes for a minor, and they represent more of a kind of an appetizer to that particular major. So you're getting a little bit of an introduction to what that field of study is, but it's not the full major. And usually minors are more for personal interest. So if there's an area of study that, hey, I want to get some more background in this area, but maybe I don't want to do the entire major. So maybe you explore a minor possibility. They're not mandatory, so you don't have to complete a minor, but it is something you could look into. And if you're interested in doing that, then you could actually contact our, one of us during the academic year. We can add that onto your degree audit. That way you can keep track of those minors if you're interested in doing that. Right? And then minors can be done within social sciences, and they can be done outside the School of Social Sciences as well. So if you want to do a history minor or a criminology minor, those are all possibilities for you. Now, the other part is with elective units is when I was talking about the 180 minimum units earlier, elective units represent just units that can be within your major, outside your major, that once you've satisfied all those major requirements, maybe you have a handful of units left to complete. If that's the case, then you can take courses in various areas, right? They don't have to be necessarily in political science or social sciences, and that can be added up to your total units of 180 if you need to do that. All right, so changing your major possibilities and maybe even double majoring. So transfer students do have, in certain instances, have the opportunity to change their majors or even add a double major once they start at UCI if you can meet the requirements to get into those majors. So every major on campus, whether you're changing majors or whether you're trying to double major, requires the completion of a certain amount of coursework and also a GPA requirement that needs to be met in order to get into that particular major. So the timing and the framing of that is also important because as transfer students, you're given 9 full quarters to complete all of your degree requirements at UCI. So if you're going to do a double major or a minor, then you're limited to those 9 quarters, which is 3 years basically. So because we have 3 quarters, in 1 year here at UCI. Now, when you're looking at that, there's a website called changeyourmajor.uci.edu, and it's listed down here at the bottom. That actually has all of the major entry requirements for every major on campus. So you would look at that, and then it would tell you the courses and then the GPAs and the grades that you need to achieve in those courses in order to at least apply for that major. Now, there are some things like maximum unit limits. So just completing the requirements to get into a major doesn't always mean automatically you're going to be admitted, because it really depends on, are there spaces, in that particular major, how long does it take you to get to those requirements, and how much time do you have left to get it done? So those are all things to consider when you're looking at either changing your major, changing your major or double majoring, because those are things that are looked at as well when you want to do that. All right, so our undergraduate student affairs office. So you can see by the photo there that we're a pretty fun bunch right there. We're smiles on our faces, and that's kind of our office, right? We're kind of that office. We try to be as loose as possible and try to help you out as best we can to make sure that you have, your journey is a happy one here and productive one. So we have 8 full-time academic advisors, and we're all represented in that photo right there. The great thing is all of us have our degrees from UCI. So we're all UCI alumni. So we've been here at UCI from various points in time. So we all know the campus, which is really great to have advisors who really know the campus from a student perspective and kind of an academic advisor's perspective as well. But even more important than our full-time academic advisors are our peer academic advisors, because they represent students like you who can assist in many different ways, because they can give you the current climate of the campus and how they're taking their classes and what's the average workload, and and how to balance things out. And they're well-trained peer advisors. And we have 8 to 12 peer academic advisors, and Estella, who's one of our advisors, does a great job in training them in all of our majors. And they can provide just a wealth of information that we rely on them a lot for. So I think you'll find that our peer academic advisors will be great resources for you in the next couple of years. And we also see some of our other services that you have down there below as well that we provide within the Student Affairs office. All right, so how to communicate with our office. So 2 ways. For the summer, and that's the first part at the top there, anytime between now and the end of September, because we don't start our quarter until the end of September, you'll definitely want to communicate with us via the transfer admin email that you've received emails from, or maybe you've replied back to those emails. So that's transferadmin@socsci.uci.edu. That's the email address. That's our communication line with you for the summer. So please, any questions, anything related to your major or registration, any questions you have can be directed to that email address. Make sure if you are sending emails to that address, use your UCI email address, include your full name, your UCI ID number, please, because that's how we can identify you. And then at least give us maybe 2 business days to respond, because we do have a lot of students coming in during the fall quarter. And so, if you give us be a little bit patient, give us a couple of days, we'll definitely get back to you, I promise. All right, and then beginning with the fall quarter, then you'll have access to a lot more communication lines. So once the fall quarter begins at the end of September, you'll have email access, of course, and then you can actually send emails to one of our advisors in the office. And we highlight one because we do want to make sure that you're not sending the same email to multiple advisors. So you can actually pick one of the advisors in the office and send an email. That way we can reply to your email more efficiently that way. Or you can send it to our general email address, which is socsci@uci.edu. That's another way you can communicate with us once the fall quarter begins. Then we also have phone hours as well. So we're going to have ability for you to contact our office via phone, and your hours are posted on our website. And we're going to have that posted. You'll see that on there once the fall quarter begins. And then if you call outside of our posted phone hours, then please leave a message, a voicemail with your name and your ID number, and we'll definitely call you back. But that's going to be posted on our website once the fall quarter begins. And then we also have live chats. So live chats are a really great way for quick questions to be answered. And our advisors are on there as well. And we'll have those hours posted on our website. They're not really for more in-depth questions, they're more for quick questions. So make sure you use, something like an email if you have more in-depth questions, right? And then we're gonna have Zoom appointments as well, beginning week 2 of each quarter, from week 2 to week 10. We'll have a form on our website where you can request an advising appointment via Zoom, and you can do that as well. And then we'll have that posted, on our website. But just to know, between now and the end of September, please use our transfer admin email address, so that way we can communicate with you during the summer. All right, so some of our resources that you see at the top here, these are, obviously we have many more resources than what you see on this website, but these are some of the, resources a lot of our students utilize on a, on a daily basis, weekly basis, and they're really great resources. So we have like the Learning and Academic Resource Center, we have the Counseling Center on campus, the Career Pathways Office, Disability Services Center, International Center. All of these centers are dedicated to helping students in different areas. So they have staff who really want to help out, and you can utilize us as a main kind of point of communication, and we can provide links for you if you like. You can also go directly to these websites as well and visit these offices once the fall quarter begins, and they'll have a great amount of information and some workshops and things like that as well. All right, so what's coming up next? So some important dates, deadlines that are coming up. Hopefully, I know you've all received registration emails from our transfer admin. That has to be completed no later than June 18th by 5 p.m., right? Because that's the key for you to get into the Canvas modules that are required as well. And those need to be completed by June 24th, right? So make sure that you've gotten the registration, fill out the form. It's on the registration form. Do it now. If you haven't done it already, just do it right now. Don't wait till June 18th. Get it done early so we can get you set up and you can start doing your Canvas modules, which are required for you to enroll into classes for the fall quarter, right? So if you do complete those Canvas modules by June 24th, then you're going to have your registration holds lifted between June 28th and July 8th. That way you can enroll in classes during that time frame. And during that time frame, you're also going to get a direct email from one of our academic advisors, and it's going to have course recommendations in there, enrollment information, a degree check that shows you what you've been given credit for after we've evaluated your transcripts. So in order to be able to get all that information and get that email, you got to register for transfer advising. You have to complete the Canvas modules. So get that done as soon as you can. Right? And then once you are able to enroll in those classes, do it as soon as possible, because you don't want to wait too long, because important courses might start to fill up and you want to be able to get as many classes as you can and that you want to for the fall quarter. And then the other two deadlines that you have there are, make sure that you do submit all of your official transcripts to admissions no later than July 1st. That's a UCI admissions deadline. That's very important because you don't want to have a hole put in your record if the transcripts haven't arrived. So send all that to UCI admissions via the admissions portal. And then paying fall quarter fees. So September 15th by 4 p.m. is the deadline to pay fees for the fall quarter. Very important deadline, because if you don't pay fees by that deadline, you're going to be dropped from all of your classes, and then you may not be able to add back into all those classes since some of them might be full. So we try to get your fees paid by that deadline as well. All right, so that does it for the presentation portion that we have. And like I indicated at the beginning, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to have Q&A with myself, and we'll have other advisors as well that'll be answering some questions for you live. So what we do ask for you is, and there's Sarah right there, she's going to help out as well. Enter your question in the Q&A chat box, right? So put your questions in the Q&A box there, and then one of us will answer your questions. And then make sure they're more general in nature. So we can't really answer specific questions to you personally because of confidentiality information. So make them more general, because that's going to benefit everybody in the session as well too. And then please only send your question once, so it helps us monitor the questions, and so we can get to those questions a little bit more quickly. All right. So at that point, we're just going to have you can start putting your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll go from there.
All right, so we have our first question. So this is from Daniel. He's asking, are the 3 social science courses required to graduate, can they be applied to another major? So I think the school requirements for social sciences.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking that question was too. So that is a question that it depends on the major, right? If you're double majoring in something like that, there's really no overlapping of upper division courses. So let's say you did something in, say you double majored in anthropology and political science. There is a possibility of overlapping of 2 lower division classes that we allow, but anything related to upper division courses would not be allowed as an overlapping course within majors within the social sciences. So hopefully that answers your questions. I think that's might be what you were asking.
Yeah, so and the school requirements, so like, you know, the math requirement and the social science 3A too, like that's, if you double major with another major within social sciences, that counts for both. So it's not like you have to like take math twice or take, you know, both computer education classes either. So, so yeah, you can overlap 2 lower division classes between social sciences majors. The school requirements count for any of our majors, no matter what, or if you change to another major, still counts. The only issue would be like if you change to econ, because you would need to take specific classes for the majors, but for everything else, it's all the same. And yeah, just no overlapping upper division classes, like Kurt said. Okay, next question is from Micah. He's asking about iGETSI and needing to send it to our office or to admissions. Okay, so I will answer this question since it's more of an administrative type question. Okay, so with your iGETSI, please send your official iGETSI to UCI admissions. We used to ask students to send it to us, but now that most community colleges are sending documents electronically and UCI admissions is also accepting documents electronically, it's just easier if it's sent electronically directly from your community college to UCI admissions, and then we can actually look at your admissions portal and view those documents. Before, when things were being mailed constantly and not every community college was sending transcripts electronically or iGETSI electronically, it was oftentimes easier if you mailed it directly to us because we get our mail more quickly than admissions does, as you might imagine, because we probably have way less of it than admissions does. But yes, so once you have your official iGETSI, if your community college sends it electronically to UCI admissions, that's great. If for whatever reason your community college is like, nah, we don't do that, and they only send like paper hard copies of iGETSI, in that instance, go ahead and send it to our office directly, because again, we're probably going to get it faster than admissions does. So that would be more helpful in that case. Okay, so our next question is from Chloe. She's asking about fall quarter being online or in person and like what's actually happening as far as classes are concerned.
Hi, Chloe. Thanks for submitting your question. So the easy answer to that is that UCI is advertising in person. Like most classes will be offered in person. That's how the approach of the campus at this point is going. And you're going to probably find more classes in person than you would find that are virtual or remote or online, but you might find some classes that are online. But the idea is to have majority of your classes in person. So yeah, I would prepare for in-person classes because that's how it's going to go, because there may not be enough classes, you know, online if you're just looking for an online schedule purely. So I would prepare for maybe most of your classes to be in person, but you might have 1 or 2 that might be online. It just depends on the course and the department offering that.
Yeah, and you'll see the different course listings on the schedule of classes. Once you take a look at our recommendations that we're going to send to you, you can actually look at the schedule to see what's being offered. I mean, you can look now if you want to, but it'll probably make more sense once we actually send you like the courses that we're recommending for you. But yeah, you'll see a mix, like Kurt said, of in-person classes, virtual, remote, and online. So I know there's like 3 different types of classes that are listed there. Some classes may be hybrid, so it could be like that your lecture is online, but then your discussion section or your lab is in person. So even if the lecture's online, you'd still have to come to campus for those discussion sections 1 day a week, that kind of thing. So it's super important to check the schedule and see how things are being offered, because you know, it could say like virtual remote, but it has a day and time, which means you still need to be online at that time, or it could be purely online, or it could be a mix, or it could be purely in person. So there's kind of a lot of things happening. If you end up having questions or you see something where you're like, I'm not really sure what they're asking me to do, like, or when I'm supposed to be on campus, you can always either email the instructor directly, or you can, well, you can contact us and we can see if we have that info, but we may also tell you, like, just talk to the instructor, because it's more likely the instructor's deciding how they're going to offer the class. So.
Yeah, and you might see too, instructors might not have their full like class website ready until you get closer to the beginning of fall quarter as well. So that should explain things a little more clearly too once that we get closer to the end of September. So that's something that you'll look out for too for the class website.
But yeah, that is an important thing too, now that I'm thinking about it, to mention is that you really should plan to be here to take classes. So, you know, it could be too that some classes change over the summer from online to in-person or vice versa. So it's a little difficult to plan for a quarter where you're still kind of playing things by ear as far as like the public health situation is concerned. But yes, plan on being here. That is what the campus is saying. And yeah, you're probably going to have a mix of in-person and online classes for fall. Okay, our next question is from Andres. He's asking, with one semester of stats at community college, how many quarters of stats would we have to take at UCLA?
So, Andres, so the answer to that question, if you're choosing the social science 10A, B, and C option to complete your math requirement here in social sciences, then that means you still need to complete the whole sequence, right? So your semester of stats isn't really quite equivalent to any of those areas that we have, because of course it's taught in a different way because there's inclusions of more probability and statistics. So even if you did do a semester of stats, it might help you with some aspects of the class, but you'll still need to take the full sequence. So the 10A, the 10B, and the 10C. And I would highly recommend, if you're going to choose that option, do it during your first year. So you can take 10A in the fall quarter, 10B in the winter quarter, 10C in the spring quarter, then you're done with it. And then you can move on to the next year 2 and not have to worry about completing that. But yeah, the stats course would only be given credit if you decide to do the calculus option, which means that you could do it. And maybe you want to do it because you want to double major in something that requires calculus, or maybe you love the calculus math options that are there. That could happen as well. But then you might need some placement tests to be completed as well. And there might be some prerequisite courses before you get to calculus as well.
All right. Okay, so Brandy's asking, for students who have financial aid, they don't need to pay for the fall fees. So I can answer this one. So if you're a financial aid recipient, the way the payment of your fees works is that you just have to be enrolled in a minimum of 6 units, and then your financial aid kicks in. So as long as you're enrolled in at least 6 units before that fee deadline, then as long as everything else is cool with your financial aid, it will just kind of auto kick in and cover your fees for you. Then for students who don't have financial aid and are paying fees on their own, then you have to make sure you pay your fees by that deadline, otherwise you're dropped from your classes. So if you're a financial aid recipient, make sure everything is cool with your financial aid and that financial aid isn't asking you for any like outstanding documents and things like that to approve your aid package and things like that. And then make sure you're enrolled before the fee deadline. So that's why when Kurt was saying earlier, like it's really important once we send our fall course recommendations to you, that you enroll right away. Don't like wait a month to do it, because the likelihood of you like forgetting to enroll and then missing, not being enrolled and missing the fee deadline and getting dropped from your classes, like all of that increases. So just once you get that email from us, try and enroll in your classes ASAP. But yeah, as long as you're enrolled in at least 6 units as a financial aid recipient, it'll kick in and pay your fees for you.
Yeah, and I believe we just put the website for financial aid in the chat box. So if you want to click on the financial aid office for more information, they're going to be your best resource. And you also have a financial aid portal that you can log into as well too to see your updated financial status, aid status as well too. So that'd be great to check that out periodically.
Okay, our next question is from Daniel. He is asking, what is the process in changing majors within the same school? So like changing majors within social sciences.
All right, so great, good question. Basically, to get into any major, regardless of whether it's in social sciences or outside, will require completion of a certain amount of courses and a certain GPA requirement in those classes. So let's say, for example, that your political science right now, you want to add sociology as your double major, then you might have to take some sociology courses first and get a certain grade in those classes to be eligible. If you remember on that slide that I had from the change of major, we do have a change of major website for all majors on campus. It's changeofmajor.uci.edu. If you go to that website, you can click on School of Social Sciences, and then you can see all of our majors and what's required to get into those majors. That gives you a better idea of what you need to plan ahead for as far as completing those courses. And you may have completed some of those classes, maybe from your previous college. So that's a good thing because those can count. It just depends on what you've done and what major you're trying to get into.
Okay, so our next question is from Darath, and they're asking, I submitted a transfer advising registration form that might be incorrect or have incomplete information. Should I submit a new one or should I wait to be contacted? Okay, so if you already submitted your transfer registration form, you're not able to submit another one. It's kind of like a one-time deal. So if there's something that is incorrect on your form, please send an update email to that transferadmit@soci.uci.edu email address. And basically we'll update the registration form for you with the correct information. Or like if your transcripts, you forgot to upload something, you can send those as well. So basically if you need to update us with anything, send us an email and we'll edit the form for you. Okay, next question is from Gina, and they are asking, can you go over how units transfer if we have more than the transferable amount? So would the students still get credit for all the courses that meet certain requirements?
So hi, Gina. Thanks for submitting the question. So for the transferable units that I talked about earlier, basically we're talking about unit limits, right? So there are instances where we have some students who might want to take a class to satisfy a specific like major requirement or a subject requirement in another area. So you can definitely do that, and it could meet a course requirement. It just would not, you would not receive any extra units towards your graduation requirements for 180, right? So that's really what we're talking about there. But we do have some students who maybe they decide they want to complete a math course, like say a semester of calc, but they've already reached their unit limit. So they can do that to satisfy the math requirement. It just, you won't see those units awarded directly for your 180 units. So hopefully that makes sense from that perspective.
Yeah, and so just kind of to like add on to that, we're going to see all your transfer classes. It's just that your units get capped at a certain amount. So like, don't worry that you're like, well, but I took like, this class that I need for my major in my last semester, but I was already over the 70 semester units. We're still going to see that and give you credit for it. You're just only going to be capped at that 70 units towards the 180 required for graduation. So you'll still get credit for the classes. You just don't get units towards graduation, if that makes sense. Okay, so Chloe is asking, can we minor in or double major in law?
All right. Good morning, Chloe. Thanks for submitting the question. So there actually is no major in law or minor in law at UCI. So that actually leads into another question I can provide some clarification on as well. So we have a lot of students who are interested in going to law school across the campus. So really your best bet is to do the major that you want, because doing a minor or anything that just requires some law courses doesn't necessarily increase your chances of getting into law school. Law schools really don't care so much about what your major is, as long as you're doing well within the major that you choose. So that you got to get the highest GPA possible, get your letters of recommendation, take the LSAT. But if you really want a minor that might help you prep for the LSAT, there is a minor in the School of Humanities called the Humanities and Law minor. That if you're looking for something they're not law classes, but they're courses like comparative literature, African American studies, English lit, courses that are more critical thinking involved and may help with the LSAT prep. That's why that minor was created. That might be something you look into, but we don't unfortunately have anything like a law major or a law minor, even though we have the law school here on campus, UCI.
Yeah, there is like an introductory Poli-Sci 71A, right? The intro to law class. So, I mean, if you're interested in that, that would be something to take when you're here, if you haven't already taken an equivalent at your community college. But yeah, we don't have like law specific classes, I would say, or like specific like law school prep track, that kind of thing. And it's courses within the 170 to 179 range are more focused on that area within political science.
Yeah, and the other resource you can use too is the Division of Career Pathways has a great resource for students interested in going to law school. And then there's a link on there that's like top 10 tips for preparing for law schools, and it gives you a lot of good information about how to prep, and that way I would visit their website for that. Our resource center, Social Sciences Academic Resource Center, will periodically have workshops and things of that way to law school. We actually have our peer advisors who have done like some workshops and videos that will be on our YouTube channel that we have as well, that you can actually see from last year and maybe upcoming years. So you'll definitely see a lot of information coming to you about law school. There's ways to prepare for it. I think that's going to be your best source of information as well too.
And there are extracurricular things that happen as well, like outside of Division of Career Pathways and SARC, like, UCI does have a mock trial team. So there are other kind of ways to get involved with other students that are similarly interested in going to law school after graduation. And that can kind of help you as well to connect with your peers that have the same plans, and you can kind of pool information and prep and things like that. And it opens up opportunities for you too. Yeah, because it's not just about the academics, it's about all the other stuff you do as well. So, but that's why we have things like SARC and the Division of Career Pathways and stuff for students also. All right, I think we're all caught up on questions right now. Does anybody else have any other questions to ask? Now's your chance. So Mike is asking, would Poli-Sci 10A, B, and C cover the math requirements? And is there much difference between the Social Science 10 series compared to the other 10 series in social science?
So Micah, I don't believe we're offering the Poli-Sci 10 series this coming up academic year. So your options are probably going to be more the Social Science 10A, B, and C for this upcoming academic year. Now we do have other 10 series like Sociology 10A, B, and C, Anthro 10A, B, and C. So they're all based in probability and statistics, but what they do, some of them use different examples to explain the topics. So for example, if you took a Sociology 10A, B, and C, they're going to use more topics related to the major in sociology to explain probability and statistics. Social Science 10A, B, and C is our most general one, so it applies to all majors. So that's typically the most common one that students take. And we also offer more sections of that per quarter too. Usually we have about 3 or 4 different sections of Social Science 10A as well. So that's a course you can easily enroll into. So hopefully that answers your question.
You can take Anthro 10A, B, and C or Sociology 10A, B, and C. It's just usually those are major restricted initially during enrollment, whereas Social Science 10A, B, and C is open to everyone. So yeah, you have choices, but Social Science 10A, B, and C is what we recommend for most students. Yeah, I think Estella mentioned in the chat, if we don't have any more questions in the next minute or so, we'll probably wrap up. So if you have anything that you really want to get answered, now is kind of like your last call for questions during our Q&A. And we'll just sit here awkwardly while we wait.
We're okay with awkwardness, so.
I mean, we've certainly had enough experience with sitting here awkwardly waiting for questions this week, so. All right, well, I don't see any other questions coming in, so we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. Thank you all for joining us. We know it's really early in the morning, so hopefully you all had coffee or tea or something as you're watching, or breakfast, or both. If you still have questions after today, please feel free to email them to the transferadmin@socsci.uci.edu email address. That is, as Kurt mentioned, your main source of communication with our office this summer. And yeah, just if you haven't submitted that transfer advising registration form, please do so, so that you can get access to the Canvas modules. If you've already done that and you've already done Canvas, that's great. Just hang tight and we will go ahead and send you your fall course recommendations and degree check sheets later on this month or early in July, so you can get registered for fall quarter. But yeah, thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate
And it
it.
was great to provide you information, and looking forward to seeing all of you on campus in person in the fall quarter. And I'm sure you're even more excited than we are to have you. So you're excited to be here. So and then Zot, you're going to have to learn that. That's going to be part of your thing that you do in the next couple of years as well, too.
Yes, yes. All right. Thank you all. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy your weekend.